Renee started by doing this message called Take Out the Trash, all right? And then last week we talked about the fresh start. Both of them were about, having a new beginning. All of us need a fresh start, right? Or at the very least, we have some dreams that we want to see accomplished in our lives, right? How many of you know what National Quitters Day is? It was this past Friday. National Quitters Day is when 88% of the people who make New Year's resolutions and set goals quit. They give up, all right? So I want to encourage you, while it's never, ever, ever too late to get started, it is always too early to quit. Don't give up. Don't give up on God, because He's never given up on you, all right? Now, last week I challenged you to bring a couple of people around you to help you with your fresh start or to help you with your dreams. And, a couple of people who are much more informed and even smarter than you are in certain areas. I think about when I really surrendered to the ministry, and that was about 25 years ago. In fact, it was 25 years ago today that we started Celebrate Recovery over at East Ridge Church. And so in that, I rose pretty quickly. I got in touch with Pastor John Baker, the founder of Celebrate Recovery at Saddleback Church, and I made some connections there, and it wasn't long before I was the first state representative for Celebrate Recovery. Had the first Celebrate Recovery in Georgia, and then I quickly became the national director, the Southeast Regional Director, and then later became the national director. And people always ask me, said, man, how did all that happen as quickly as it did? Well, I brought great people around me. That's what I did. I got people around me who were smarter than me and better than me, that were in line with the goal and my God-given vision for where my life was going. And you know what? For these reasons and many, many more, we all need lasting relationships. We all need lasting friendships. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Lasting friendships. Next to the Bible, the top-selling book in the past century is How to Win Friends. How to Win Friends and Influence People. A little research this week. The number one emotional problem that is at the root of a lot of mental illnesses, particularly anxiety and depression, is loneliness. Loneliness. I was in a conference call this week with about 1,000 pastors, and one of the things they talked about is the AI revolution that's happening right now. And it was brought up that the average person spends 7 hours a day staring at their phone. Screen time is 7 hours. I don't know if that's you or not, but in this astounding age of advancements and technological wizardry, if you want to call it that, people are falling prey to the ill effects of loneliness at an alarming rate. And it's attributed to the AI revolution. Loneliness, anxiety, depression, they become siblings in this technological revolution. Every single study that I looked at, and I looked at 4 from Barna Group, Pew Institute, Johns Hopkins Medical University, and also Mayo Clinic. And at the top of every single one of those, where anxiety was concerned, it says loneliness plays a significant role in anxiety and depression because we isolate socially. We isolate socially. Excessive screen time, particularly on social media, is associated with the increased risk of anxiety, depression, sleep disturbances, and again, social isolation. I have personally never met so many introverted and socially awkward people than I have in the last 15 or 20 years, and that's when the iPhone came on the scene. But you know what? Just being around other people, it isn't enough to prevent loneliness. It isn't. What we need is this. We need quality time with people. And that determines whether or not we're lonely. That determines our mental health. You know, you want friends. I believe that. And you not only want friends, but you know what? You need friends. And I'm going to say this again because I've seen a couple of us on social media put this out here, that all I need is Jesus. All I need is Jesus and my family. And that is a lie to hell that Satan is selling us today. I'm telling you this, you can't hide behind the Jesus defense. Jesus didn't do that. Never, not once. Not once. He said we need each other. We need one another. Jesus had friends. In his human form, he recognized he needed friends. And I'm going to bring that to light tonight. The Bible says that you and I were made to have friends. We are. It's the way we're wired. It just is. In fact, if you read the creation story in Genesis, God created Adam, and then what did he say? It's not good for man to be alone. And then he created Eve, right? And he said, go forth and multiply the earth. Well, this guy comes along named Solomon, the wisest man next to Jesus to walk the face of the earth. And he says this from Ecclesiastes chapter 4, starting in verse 9. 2 are better than 1, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help him. But if somebody falls and they're all alone, well, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. 2 are better than 1. And he goes on in verse 12 and he says this. He says 3 is even better. And this is just one of the reasons that I say, you know, you need 2 or 3 really good friends. Friendships are never accidental either. All right? They're made. They're developed. They're planned. Relationships are cultivated. They're nurtured. They're built. All right? And I don't know if you realize this or not. How many of you ever read through the book of Proverbs? And you don't have to raise your hand, but the book of Proverbs is a relational manual. It is a relationship manual. And Solomon tells us to have friends. You not only have to be friendly, but you have to make friends. You have to be intentional about it. And he gives us 6 ways to do that across the book. And parents, I would encourage you tonight to pay attention and take good notes, because we need to teach this stuff to our kids where their relationships are concerned. Because you know what? It's in those younger years. Those younger years, the professionals say that in the first 5 years they're learning discipline, they're learning boundaries and that kind of thing. But in those ages 6 to 10 is when they're learning about relationships. And more often than not, who you hang with during those years, who they see you hanging with, that's who they're going to hang with. But this is how to develop friends according to the Bible. All right? To develop lasting friendships, I must first be committed. I have to have commitment. Now, this is almost counterculture, but we have to be a committed people. We do. Proverbs 18:24 says this: some friends do not last, but some friends are more loyal than a brother. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, what he's saying here is that, you know what, your social life can be somewhat hazardous to your close friendships. He says you can have so many shallow relationships that you never really have anybody that's close to you, any close friendships. All right? The point he's making here is that we are to concentrate on quality and not quantity of relationships. You know, you don't need a lot of friends, but you do need a few good friends that are committed to you and that you are committed to them. You see that word loyal there? You ought to circle it or underline it. He's talking about commitment there. Commitment. Friendships always begin with a commitment. Yet we're in a throwaway society, aren't we? We are, man, with disposable this, disposable that, and we'll throw away a relationship like nothing ever happened. I see this over and over again and again, and it's heartbreaking as a pastor. If it doesn't work out, too bad. I'll just get another one. You know, in the Old and New Testament both, friendships were called a covenant. A covenant between one another, and that covenant was built to last. And that's the whole point. Covenant means a profound binding commitment to one another. All right, and I don't know about you, but I'm not so relationally rich that I can just throw a relationship away. I love people too much to do that. So this begs a few questions here, a couple. How many committed friends do you have? And how many people do you know that you are committed to? How many people are you committed to? The second characteristic, or the second trait for lasting relationships, is I must be considerate. Proverbs 17:9 says, anyone who overlooks an offense promotes love. It just means, hey, I see you. I see your faults, and I still love you. But someone who gossips separates close friends. I want to talk about both of those things, particularly gossip here in just a minute. But what he's talking about here is being considerate of one another, being considerate of our relationships. And that just simply means this. It simply means that you accept your friends' warts and all. All right? That you forgive them and their mistakes. In fact, you go into the relationship knowing they're going to make some mistakes, all right? You don't kick them when they're down. If you ever want to know who your friends are, all right, just make a mistake and see who sticks around. Yeah, real friends are very much aware that we're riddled with faults, all right, and that we're prone to failure. But they choose to love us. They choose to help us and be patient, okay? That's what friends do. That's what friends do. We love in spite of all those things, all right? Friends are also considerate of tough times. They know when tough times are happening, and you know what? You're going to face some in life. And the fact that you don't have it all together. You just don't. You just don't. What I'm talking about here is what I mentioned last week is our attitudes again. I'm talking about the attitude of acceptance. All right, when I say nobody's perfect, all right, we're all flawed, every single one of us. We're flawed, we are. But you know what? You can still have friendships by being committed and also being considerate. Those are the first two, all right? Let me just say this. Being considerate, it means a couple of things to me, all right? First, I don't assume. I don't assume where any of my friends are concerned. I don't assume where any people are concerned, because assuming will destroy a relationship almost as quick as anything. It will. Never assume in a relationship. Always pick up the phone. Hey, let's talk this out. Let's meet and let's talk this out face to face. That's what Jesus tells us to do in Matthew 18. And then the second thing is this. I always try to remember this. Treat other people the way that I want to be treated. The third trait in building great, lasting friendships is this. I must be confidential. And this is where I'm going to pick up the gossip talk, but this just means this. It means that I'm a confident. I can keep a secret, all right? Anybody can tell me anything, all right? And I don't have the urge to go blab it to everybody. It's not going to be all over social media this evening, all right? Proverbs 11:13 says, a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy man keeps a secret. You know, and I'm amazed today at how many people can't keep a confidence. They just can't. That's not being a friend. It isn't. Proverbs 16 tells us gossip separates close friends, and it does. It does. That is another quick way to kill a friendship. Not being confidential. Be a gossip. You know what gossip is? Gossip is just trivial or sensational talk about someone without all the facts, all right, just for the sake of talking. Just for the sake of talking. You know it's sin? It is. However, to talk to someone or to talk to an individual about someone's behavior in order to make a plan when it's wrecking their lives, before it wrecks their lives or before they hurt somebody, all right? And you're doing it with the right motives, like I said, to make a plan, okay? All right? For forgiveness, amends, or whatever, all right? Sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes that's necessary. But your motives have to be pure in that. You don't talk just to sensationalize. You don't. Gossip kills a relationship quicker than anything. A true friend will listen to you. They'll hear you out without having this burning desire to blab it out to somebody else. Gossip kills. Gossip is sin. You know what? Friends don't gossip. They just don't. The fourth characteristic is I must be candid. I wanted to use another word here, but I couldn't think of one. But I must be candid. Proverbs 17, starting in verse 5. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted. A friend is somebody who will do this. They'll say something to you, even if it's hard, even if it hurts. All right? It's the truth, and they'll do it because they care about you and because they love you. All right? They're candid. A true friend, they'll level with you. They'll shoot straight with you. They'll be open. They'll be honest. They'll be frank. And you ask them, and they'll tell you the truth. They will. They'll give you the facts, even if it's painful, but they'll do it tactfully. They'll do it tactfully. There won't be a dragon. You all know some dragons, right? I mean, man, they just burn you. They do with their words. Look, here's the score. All of us have a blind spot. All of us have a fig leaf that we want to hide behind, whether we want to admit that or not, all right? And what that means is this, is there are things in our life that we could possibly be doing or involved in, saying whatever, that could really wreck our lives, and we can't see it. I don't know about you, but I need somebody. I need somebody who cares enough to say, hey, you're blowing it, Brad. You're blowing it. And a lot of times today, you hear people say, well, I know you're their friend, and what have you, and I know they're making a big mess of their life, but it's really none of my business. I want to tell you something. Friends make it their business. That idea, this idea of, mind your own business isn't a Christian term. I just don't believe that. If you're aware and you care, you'll share. That's the bottom line. Friends make it their business to be candid and say, hey, you're messing up here. You're headed down the wrong path. Proverbs 24:26 says an honest answer is a sign of a true friendship. Honest answer, circle that. A genuine friend is somebody that can level with you and be very straightforward yet loving. Proverbs 27:9 says the pleasantness of a friend springs from heartfelt advice. Heartfelt. Circle that word too, if you have it, or just write it down. I don't think it's on your outline. Write that down. That just means they care. They have compassion. They're empathetic. They love you enough to say, hey, you're blowing it again. Right? The problem with most Christians, most people that is, doesn't matter whether you're a believer or not, is that, you know what? They don't have anybody who cares enough about them who will be this kind of person. They don't have any friends at this level. They never get beyond superficial and shallow. You have anybody in your life who has the freedom to say, hey, man, you better check up. You better check in. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. I mean, because look, we're all faced sometimes where we're about to make a mistake. And those that are closest to us can come around us because they love us and say, hey, man, I love you, but check up. If you don't have any friends like that, you know what? You're living in a very dangerous and precarious place. And you're setting yourself up for failure. Victory is won through many advisors. That's Proverbs 11. Victory is won through many advisors. You know what? You don't need a ton of friends, like I've said many, many times, but you need to have 2 or 3 that know enough about you that they can call you out and say, hey, you better think this through. You better think this through. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. You and I are in big trouble. The 5th characteristic is this. You need friends who are constructive. Let me read this verse and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. It's Proverbs 27:17. You know this. As iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpen another. All right? So what I'm talking about is real, genuine friends build you up. They help you along. All right? They motivate. They motivate you to grow. You motivate and help each other to grow. All right? They bring out the best in each other. They encourage one another. Friends lift one another up. They motivate one another. You know what? I don't need a lot of negativity. I get that from the world. All right? But what I need is people who will be my friend. All right? And build me up and say, hey, this is what I see in you. Okay? Let me suggest a couple of things that have worked for me or what I've seen work for others. All right? And then you encourage them. You can do it. All right? You can go for it. You can do this. You can make this happen. That's constructive. That's constructive. They're not just sharing with you the negative stuff, the ugly stuff, all right? They're encouraging you. You need somebody in your life who will pour into you. I do, and so do you, all right? Some people just love to pull you down, don't they? You know these types. I mean, it's their mission in life. They have a spiritual gift called criticism. That's not a spiritual gift, y'all. It's not. Proverbs 12:26 says, the righteous choose their friends carefully. Let's choose our friends carefully. Let's be cautious in friendships. Why? Because you'll become like the people that you hang with. The people you spend the most time with, that's who you'll become. And if you don't like the way your friends are, quit hanging with them. Quit spending time with them, all right? And I'm going to say this, and we did this little exercise a couple of months back, but you can't lift somebody up to your own level. It's just not going to happen, all right? The sheer law of gravity teaches us that it's easier to pull somebody down, and it is, all right? Teenagers, listen to me in here, all right? The people you hang around at school, it's much easier for them to pull you down than for you to lift them up. I hear this so much from teens. Hey, you know, I can bring them along with me. No, you can't. And that is why you need to choose your friends carefully. 1 Corinthians 15:13, bad company ruins good character. Not some of the time, but all the time. You know the book of Proverbs? It mentions 16 type of people that you should not have as friends. You want to know who they are? Let me just go through these right quick, all right? First one is the fool. I'm just using the same language that Proverbs use. The fool, the mocker, the hot-tempered, angry person, the gossiper, the liar, the sluggard, the lazy person, the arrogant, the immoral person, those who lack character, good character, the self-indulgent, the glutton, all right? The disloyal person, the envious and jealous person, the abusive person, the treacherous or treasonous person, traitors, if you will, and then the greeters, not the greeters. Our greeters are wonderful here, y'all. All right. Yeah, amen. The greedy, and what that means, lovers of money. Lovers of money, all right? Look, I want to challenge you to read through the book of Proverbs and find these 16 people. And if you do that, I'll take you out to dinner of your choice, your restaurant, all right? Do that and bring it to me. I'll take you out to dinner. Do that. But Proverbs clearly and explicitly says there are people that you should avoid in your life because they will pull you down. They draw you away from the Lord rather than to the Lord. They destroy your potential rather than increasing your potential. Every single time. Parents, take notes of this. Take notes of who your teen is hanging with. All right? All of us need to choose friends that are constructive, that build us up, that pour into us, and a true friend who encourages us. Encourages us. You want to know how? You want to know how you know when you have a real friend? Anybody? When they cheer you on, when you have a success. All right? They rejoice with you when you have a success, when you have a victory, when you get the promotion. All right? When good things come into your life, man, they're like, yes, yes. They don't get jealous. Is there a tinge of jealousy when your friends get a new car? When they move into the new house or they get a big promotion? A real friend is somebody who loves when you're successful. They don't get jealous, all right? They cheer you on. A real friend is somebody that you can share your victories with too. And they don't think you're bragging, all right? Because here's the deal. Look, great things happen in your life. They bring joy into your life. They're made to be shared with other people. All right? And if you want to know who your best friends are, who do you call when you have a victory? First person you call, that's probably your best friend. It is. It's probably your closest friend, for sure. The secret to having all the friends in the world you ever want, you become a cheerleader where their success is concerned. I'm serious. Be a cheerleader. Let them know you're in their corner pulling for them. You'll have more friends than you can stand, I guarantee you. And you know what? This is rare in our society today. We need to take note of this. Proverbs says we need to be committed, we need to be considerate, we need to be confidential, we need to be candid, we need to be constructive, and then we also need, this is the last one, and this may be the biggest one, we need to be consistent. We need to be consistent. A real friend is dependable. Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Come with me on this one, all right? When you're cornered, a real friend is in your corner. A real friend sees you through when everybody else sees that you're through. There's a difference there. A real friend walks in when everybody else walks out. A real friend is born for adversity. You get in trouble, they're there. You've probably had this happen to you before, but you're going through this personal crisis, and supposedly a good friend comes to you and they say this, hey, I know you're going through this thing, and but I know the other person, and I just wanted you to know I'm not taking sides. How does that make you feel? Doesn't make you feel very good, does it? It doesn't, all right? You know what real friends do? They take sides. They do. They just don't leave you hanging on the sideline, dangling, all right? They learn the truth. And no matter what's going on and what the truth is, they stand beside you. They do. They were born for adversity. They stick even when it's inconvenient, all right? Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it costs personally, all right? Even when you don't deserve it. A friend loves at all times. Circle that. Circle that on your outline. You know the story of David and Jonathan? It's in 1 Samuel chapters 18 through 20. This is the quintessential friendship in my book, in the Bible. They had every reason, David and Jonathan, to be jealous of one another, to really go at it. But you know what? That wasn't the case. Let me just give you some backstory here. Jonathan was the king of Saul, and Jonathan was the son of Saul, and Saul was the king of Israel, and Jonathan was next in line to be king. That's how it worked, all right? But his best friend David, and they were truly best friends, God said that he knitted their hearts together. But David was the guy that God picked to be the next king of Israel. There was every reason in the world for Jonathan to be jealous, to be envious, to pitch a fit. You know what he did? He said, that's my friend right there. Yeah. David's my boy. Yes, you go, David. You go. You go. Jonathan modeled covenant love and covenant friendship. He modeled covenant love over personal and family ties. He did. Why? Because they were good friends who were committed, they were considerate, they were confidential, they were candid, they were constructive, they were consistent with one another. Read that story. It's a beautiful story. David had Jonathan. Jesus had the disciples. Paul had Barnabas. The Lone Ranger had Tonto. Thought I'd throw that one in there. You need friends. You need friends. Most men don't have one close friend because they don't know how to have close friendships. I think that's sad. I think we're really missing out. There are different levels of relationships, but genuine friends stick with you and they stay with you over many, many years. You know, in the last 25 years, Renee and I, we've spoken to tens of thousands of people across the United States. We've met thousands of people, and we have some real friends, and we have some acquaintances in every state in the United States of America, the continental, and even in Alaska and Hawaii. We have friends that we can name. We even have a friend from Scotland who came over to visit their son, and they made it a point to come to Covington, Georgia, to see us. But you know what? One close friend is better than 1,000 acquaintances. It just is. It's God's will that you develop close friendships. Even Jesus needed close friends. He had the 12, I mentioned that. But often he would leave the others behind, and he would take Peter, James, and John everywhere with him. All right? He says, I can just imagine him saying this because I've told you how I read the Bible. I use a lot of creativity. I'm just saying, Jesus would have said, hey, I don't need your advice. I don't want anything from you. I just want you to be with me. Come on, Peter, James, and John. Let's go do this. Even Jesus needed friends, and so do you. Last week, there was a couple that stood up right back there in the back after a really long morning and a very fruitful afternoon. It was about 2 o'clock before we got out of here. And they said this to me. We want you to know that no matter whatever happens, we'll always be your friends. We're on board with you here, and we believe in you, and we believe in what we're doing here at Hope Church. You can't buy that type of loyalty. That was priceless to me. It's worth $1 million. It is. To have somebody I know that I can always count on, even when I flub up, and I do often. I do. My hope is this, is that I'm that type of friend. Really. If you're sitting there today and wish you had that type of friend, then I want to encourage you to be that type of friend. Be that type of friend. When you are, you know what? You'll have friends like that. You will. My question to you today is not how many friends you have, but who are you a friend to? Who are you a friend to? Who are you committed to, considerate of, confidential with, candid with, constructive with, consistent with? Why friendships? This is why. Because the greatest Christian witness to the world is Christian friends, caring for one another. The number one reason that people come to Christ, you know what it is? Is friendship. family and friendship. Barnum Group says this, 68% of people say they become a Christian because of a family member. And another 54% said they became a Christian because of friendship, a friend. More than 80% of people say that if a family or friend will invite me to church, I'll come. I'll come. How many of you became a Christian because somebody invited you to church, or whether it was a friend or a relative? And you don't have to raise your hand. I know it's a vast majority of you. It is. It is. You know, I don't understand how people can come to church week in and week out and never invite anybody. You know what? If I had the cure for cancer, I'd move from street corner to street corner shouting it out. I would. But we've got something better. You realize that? I mean, when you invite somebody to church and you tell somebody about the Lord, you're making a friend for eternity. Do you realize that? You're making a friend for eternity. We're going to spend eternity together. We're going to know one another in heaven. We're going to walk up to each other 100 years from now and say, hey, you remember when we had that great time back at Hope Church? Do you remember then? Make a friend for life. Let me encourage you in that. Invite somebody to church. The deepest desire of my heart for Hope Church is that we have this reputation that this is a place where people can come and make friends. Not just be a friendly church, but both. We're a place where people can come and make friends. I don't ever want any person to leave this church and say, hey, nobody spoke to me, nobody said a word to me, nobody smiled, nobody ever said hi. And by the way, you know what? I've never heard that happening here at Hope Church. Amen? Amen. I've had people tell me this, though, that a hug here at church is the only human touch that they've had all week. I've had that happen many times. This is the only place where they get physical contact from another human being in the way of handshakes and hugs and smiles. It is here on Sunday. You know, every guest who comes into this church and they let us know by turning in a Connect card, I text them personally. I text them and thank them for being here. I do. I give them, in doing so, I give them my cell number. There's not another pastor in this county who does that. I guarantee you. I've been doing that for almost 20 years. I have. We want people to feel welcome here. But you know, moreover, I want you to know that you matter. You're not alone. And the possibilities are endless with Jesus Christ. They are. You know, when you look at these 6 characteristics, you know what they are? They're simply a description of Jesus. They're Jesus. They are. This is Jesus. Jesus is committed to you. He died for you. He died on the cross. He accepts you. He forgives you. And He wants the very best for your life. He rejoices in your success. He'll always be there when you need Him. He'll never leave you, never forsake you. You can be counted on to know that, you know what? He's there. He's there. And He's not here to judge you. What did He say in John chapter 3, 17? I didn't come to judge this world. I didn't come to condemn you. I came to save you. Came to save you. He sacrificed His life for us. Solomon is saying this, is that we need to treat others the way that Jesus treated us, the way He treats us today. And some of you are thinking this, okay, how can I be all these things? That's not in my nature. I get it. We're in an introverted time in our culture. Well, here's a couple of ways. One, I want to challenge you to find one person next month, a believer in this church, by this time next month, all right, that you say, hey, I'm going to develop close relationships with. And I'm going to say this, you're going to have to work hard at it. You're going to have to cultivate it, all right? It's not going to happen in a vacuum. Relationships don't happen usually, all right, just by accident. It takes intentionality. And one of the best ways for you to do this is to be a part of our men's and women's ministry. We have dates that are about to be announced. Come and be a part of what's happening here, all right? I'm going to be real honest with you where our life groups are concerned. We're struggling to scale those, but that's okay. If you'd like to be a host for a life group, come and see me after the service today. I would love to hook you up. But you know what? You don't have to wait for any announcements to happen. You can sign up to serve today, right now. Join a ministry team. We have 16 different groups that you can serve on. And these people are doing life together. Somebody ought to say amen to that. I mean, we're serving together, but we are learning to love one another. We're developing these characteristics, all right? And we're doing life together. Join a ministry team today. Relationships are the most important thing in your life, whether you realize it or not. You don't believe that? Well, Jesus summarized the entire New Testament in 2 statements. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and then love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's relationship with God, and that's relationship with others. And we need both. When all the dust clears, what counts? Who are my closest friends? Who are my closest friends? Make a friend in church. Make a friend in this church. The second way, get a person on your heart that doesn't know the Lord and share your faith with them. Start praying and share with them little by little. Share the best news in the world because we've got it. We've got it, y'all. Invite them to church this month. Don't keep it to yourself. Share this good thing that we have with other people. It's so important. Make friends. Don't keep it to yourself. Today I want